Hey everyone, I'm Mr. English. I'm our coordinator for FLL Challenge. I'm not actually coaching a team this year, and my role is to try to help you as best I can be the best coaches that you can be. I want to try to support you the best I can this year, but since I'm not actually coaching a team, there's going to be things that I don't pick up on that you might have questions about. So please feel free to email me, connect with me, ask questions. And the more questions you ask, the better this season will go. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm not quite sure what to do here. So you can email me, you can call me, you can text me, and just make sure that I know if you're having some challenges. It could be with the kids, it could be with the material, whatever it may be. But that's my job and my role in this is to try to support you the best I can as coaches. The first thing I want to do is start to look at our team meeting guides and kind of talk about what the first couple practices might look like for your team. These are the books that you get from First to try to help you as best they are able as coaches. You get your team meeting guide, which is kind of the coach's version to try to help you through planning for your practices. You get the robot game rule book, which has all the rules for the robot game in it. We're going to talk about that quite a bit. And then the engineering notebook is the one that the kids get. We have one engineering notebook for every student. As you can see, I've labeled some of them with your team number already. I would have the kids put their name at the top of the engineering notebook. And that way, if it's left out anywhere, it's easy for me to get it back to the correct team. When we take a look at the team meeting guide, there's a lot of good information on the first couple of pages, especially if you're a first-time coach. I would look some of these things over. But as we get to where it starts to talk about sessions, you'll see a picture of the um, students version, the engineering notebook, kind of in the smaller area. And then there's ideas around the outside that you as a coach can take a look at. Do not feel like you have to do every single session. Do not feel like you have to do them in order. Don't feel like you have to follow everything exactly. This is simply a tool that you can use as a coach that might help you along as you try to plan for each practice. If you haven't already, I would open up the engineering notebook, the kids version side of things, because there's a lot of things that are in here that are not in the team meeting guide. The first page is kind of important. Those are your core values. That's something that we definitely need to look at as we're trying to work with these kids. They need to know all 6 of these core values. They are what we kind of strive to teach them about robotics. Those core values go all the way through high school. They start in FLL Discover in kindergarten, and they go all the way through. So those are what we're trying to teach the kids. For FLL Challenge, those are the 4 things that we try to put together in order to have our team be successful. And all 4 of those things are rated equally. So you could have a totally awesome robot, but if your innovation project is not very good, your overall score is still going to be quite low. If we kind of continue to turn the pages, you can see that it goes over some information about each of those areas. This is about the innovation project. This is definitely something you're going to want to take a look at. You might not want to read all of this all in one day with the kids, but pick bits and pieces of this because this is how you're going to spark their interest in that innovation project this year. And then if we keep turning the page, you've got your challenge story. Now, I don't know, this is kind of hard for me to follow if I'm honest, but it's definitely a conversation piece for you to have with your kids because there's a lot of pictures about the waters in here, and it's a great way to have some conversations about what do they see in the pictures and how does it relate to what's going on inside the oceans, inside the water. This is the first year I've not seen words in it. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there, but that's kind of where they are. I don't do a lot with the team roles. This is something that First is big on. I don't seem to think it works really well with my teams, but you're welcome to take a look at it and try to use it if you want. It's just not the way I run my teams. And then you can kind of see each session. Again, I would not necessarily do these things in order. I would not necessarily do every single lesson. I'd find the ones that seem to connect with me and what I want to do with the kids. So if we think about that, how do we want the first couple of practices to start? I do want to talk a minute about our robot rule book. I think this is an important thing for you and your team to kind of understand. If you look in there, every challenge has its own area. This is challenge 10. This is the submersible. And then down here, you can see it says if your team's yellow flag is down, you're going to get 30 points. Now, we were building these models not that long ago, and one of the kids said, Mr. English, do I have to lift the handle to make the yellow thing go down? And I said, no. You can actually take your robot and just knock the yellow pin down, and that's okay. Um, almost always a way that they're intended to be used, but it's not necessarily the way that they have to be used. For your team to get points, it just says if your team's yellow flag is down. So if at the end of the match the yellow flag is down, you get 30 points. It really doesn't matter how it happens. And that's an important thing for you and your kids to know about this. So if you're ever wondering, I wonder if it's okay for us to do that, bust out your robot rulebook, take a look at that challenge, and read what's in there. For the most part, if it doesn't say you can't do it, you can. If you're ever wondering or want to some help interpreting some of the rules, feel free to ask me. I've been through these rule books a lot. I've got a pretty good idea how they're usually interpreted. And if it really comes down to it, there are ways to ask for a judge's ruling on exactly how something would be scored. So don't hesitate to ask, especially if your team has a creative way to accomplish a task. My first practice with my team is almost completely get to know you. I go around and make everybody introduce themselves. Usually I just have them introduce themselves, tell them what their teacher's name is, what grade they're in, and maybe something they did over this summer, and just to kind of get them to start talking. And that's all about dialogue. It's all about getting each other to talk. After everybody has introduced themselves, I pose a little bit of a challenge. Can anybody here name everyone on the team? You'd be surprised how many times we get to the end of a season and they still don't know each other's names, which is still astonishing to me, but it does happen. So it's one of the first things that I do with the team is try to make sure they start to get to know each other. After that, I would bust out that team meeting guide and take a look at those comics, take a look at the project. I want them to understand the project challenge, trying to understand, and we're not going to make any decisions that day. And I tell them that right away. I said, this is not like, we're not trying to brainstorm. We're not trying to come up with a ton of ideas, but I want to make sure we start talking about what it means to explore the oceans. What are the challenges with exploring the oceans? What problems have we seen so far? And if I'm a coach, maybe I'm leading it, and my other coach is maybe starting to record some of the things the kids are saying, because we're going to bring those things back, because that's where we're going to start to develop our idea for how we're going to solve the project challenge this year. I probably am going to take some time in the first practice and take a look at the challenge board, the mission models. We're probably not going to talk a whole lot about them. We're just going to take a look at them, talk about how they're activated, what is okay, what's not okay when we're around the challenge board, just to kind of start getting some ideas about how it looks. And I'm probably going to bust out the robot. You still have, all the robots are built from last year. You do not have to leave them how they are. They can be changed, modified, all those things. So, but I'm going to take last year's robot out. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to talk about how it might be used to solve the problem, or what changes we might want to start making as we take a look at our robot challenge. Those are all things I'd probably do in the first practice. I'm not making any decisions. I'm not doing anything crazy. Just starting to get the kids to understand what the challenges are and some of the things that we're going to be doing to try to solve them. How do I go about solving the project challenge? It's different every year. It just depends on how the kids are acting and reacting to what's going on. And it depends a little bit on the challenge itself. But some of the basics apply pretty much every year. I start by just talking about it, getting a feel for where the kids are, how much they understand what the problem is, how much they understand about the topic in the first place, and then we go from there. If I feel like they don't understand the topic, then the first job is to start trying to understand the problem. So in this case, we're talking about water. So if they don't know a whole lot about the oceans yet, we're going to bring out a map. We're going to start taking a look at where the oceans are. How are they different from the freshwater lakes that we have here in Michigan? Because of course they're saltwater. And what are the challenges with exploring them? They're really, really big, first of all. Once you go out into the ocean, you are days away from land. They're very, very deep. We have never explored the very, very bottom and the depths of the ocean in most cases. We can talk about the trench where it goes really, really deep. We can talk about just deep parts of the ocean where some of our ships are sunk. What exists there, what doesn't exist there, how far down does light go, what are the challenges with taking a submersible and bringing it down to those great depths. What's the challenge with just going from here to Europe across an ocean or going across the Pacific Ocean? Just starting to talk about how challenging it is to explore the water. Another thing that's kind of important to start talking about is how pollution maybe takes a role in all this, or how just anything that has to do with exploring the water and the challenges we have exploring the water, um, and the challenges that the ocean life has with human intervention in the first place. If we talk about the corals and how they're dying off with all the heat, those kinds of things. But just starting to explore that topic. And once we've explored that topic, we start to try to find out what's the passion of our team. What is something that they're feeling very strongly about? What is something that they're feeling like they can wrap their brain around? And then we try to start thinking of problem solving. And this is where the challenge really becomes challenging. How do we solve the problems? Because you have to come at it in a way that hasn't been done yet. And when we think about trying to explore oceans, we've been trying to do that pretty much since the beginning of humankind. So a lot of it's already been done. But the goal of this is to try to come up with a new and innovative way to explore these areas. And that's where your team is going to have to do some exploring. That's where you're going to do some brainstorming sessions. I send kids off pretty much two at a time. Sometimes I send them off just by themselves, and I have them try to start brainstorming their own solutions. We bring those solutions back as a team. We try to work through them. Now, during a brainstorming session, and this is super important, you are not deciding whether or not it's a good idea right then. Just record the ideas. So as people are sharing their ideas, you're not, as a coach, going to go, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. Just record the ideas, okay? After the ideas have been shared, now is your opportunity as a coach to start talking about some of the positives and some of the challenges you see with some of their solutions. We're not ranking them. You're not saying they're good ideas or bad ideas, but as a coach, I'm going to say that this is a challenge. You're trying to make, we had one about electricity last year, and we were trying to make something fly. And I said, you're going to take all this equipment and you're going to try to put it on this jet or this plane, and you're going to try to make it fly. But the equipment itself is so heavy. I just don't see this getting off the ground. So that's a challenge that I definitely see with this is all of the weight of this equipment is going to make it very challenging for this object to fly that you think is going to fly. So I think that's something we want to look at and try to decide if we think it'll work. As a coach, that's how I try to come at things. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but I am going to point out with my own expertise some places where I think that they may need to do some brainstorming because I don't think it's going to work because of this. But if we can overcome that, then it might work. And that's kind of how I go about working through the project's challenge. The goal is to come up with something that's innovative, which means it hasn't been done before. It can be something that's been done before if you're doing it in a new and innovative way. So keep that in mind. The goal is to come up with something that it could really happen. So we want to stay away from dragons and lasers and these kinds of things. We want to make sure it's something that could actually happen, but maybe we don't have the technology for it just yet. But the technology could someday exist, right? And we want it to be something we can share, something we can tell about, something that we have some knowledge of. If at all possible, bring in some experts. Bring in people that know something about this topic. It's a great way to help the kids explore. So how do I go about solving the robot challenge with the kids? Well, a lot of things go into this as well. As a team, we start to look at the different challenges. Which ones do we think are fairly easy for our robot to accomplish? Which ones are not? How close are they together? Are there some things that require the exact same apparatus to do it? So there's a lot of lifting in this one, perhaps. So if we can lift this thing, we can also lift this thing, that same design. And so those are two challenges that we might want to do together. What things are worth a lot of points? What things aren't worth very many points? What you'll find is there's a lot of relatively simple things to accomplish with our robot that are also worth quite a lot of points. You're going to want to go ahead and do those and encourage your kids to accomplish those. That's pretty normal. The difference between a good robot and a really, really great robot are actually the smaller level, not worth as many points, but also quite challenging to do items. Now, what do we do normally? Normally, our robots accomplish 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 of the tasks. Okay, we average about 120 to 150 points in a season. That's pretty normal for us to do. It's hard to compare one season with another season because everything's worth different amounts and they're all different challenges. But as a general kind of, if you're looking for a ballpark, that's kind of what we do. What I would do is break the kids into groups of two. So I always do pair programming. If I don't have groups of two, I have groups of three. I rarely have people that are just programming by themselves. Um, we take each of those groups, picks one, maybe two challenges to accomplish, um, and they start to program and build their robot to accomplish those things. Every team has two robots that they can use and two computers that can program those robots. So you can have two groups of two working simultaneously on the project at the same time. When I was working with my team, we tried to keep the robots identical all the time, so it didn't matter which robot you were using. You could use either one and accomplish them. I've had other groups that use one as a prototype and one as their challenge bot, and I've had other groups that build two totally different types of robots just to see which one is going to work the best. How you decide to set up your team is up to you and your team on what they do. Um, as the challenge continues, you'll find that some of those challenges get done almost instantly. And for those pairs, I just have them continue to extend. Like I just ask them, what do you want to do next? What challenge do you want to do next? And we just keep trying to add things on. You'll find that time is usually not an issue. You have 2.5 minutes. Most of the time, you'll have time to accomplish all of your tasks. I will say that's been less true now that we have two home areas. When I was doing this not that long ago, there's only one home area, so the robot always came back to the same spot. We rarely ran out of time. Now that there's two home areas and you can start from either side of the board, it's taking up a little bit of time to get from one side to the other, and we're accomplishing more things because we're closer to a lot more things. And so we're starting to see where time is an issue with some of these things. Don't be afraid to abort missions. If you get some distance in and it seems like it's just not going to work, talk to that team about it, see if there's something else they want to try to accomplish. So your robot programs are going to be on a Spike Prime robot. The Spike Prime robots were new last year, so they're kind of new for everybody. We're still learning how to program them and how best to use those robots. But new this year is instead of programming on the iPads like we did last year, we've got HP laptops for all the teams that are going to be new this year. If all goes according to plan, you're going to be saving your files into a Google Drive for your team. And so those files should be available on both computers all the time so that the kids, it doesn't really matter which robot or which computer they grab, they should still have access to their files. I'm going to make a different video on exactly how to do all that in a little bit because I don't think it's important to go over that right this second, but I just want you to know that that's something that's new this year. So we're going to have some new laptops. They've got touch screens. I think the kids are going to really enjoy using them, and hopefully they're going to be helpful for you as coaches as well. Another thing we try to work on during our meetings are the core values. There's 6 core values, and it's important for your kids to know them. Okay, they don't have to have everything exactly memorized, but when the judges are talking to your kids, they're going to ask them about the core values, and the kids are going to have to at least acknowledge that they've heard of them, they understand them, and they know what they are. I take one core value pretty much each practice and kind of hammer it home, and then each additional practice, I simply go back and review the ones that I've already done. So I'll do one core value to start with, and then in the second practice, we'll take a second core value, and I'll review the first. In the third practice, I add a third core value, and then I go back and review the first 2. We keep building it like that. After the 6th practice, and we've done all 6 core values, we simply review all 6 core values each practice. It doesn't have to take long. It doesn't have to be a huge part of your lesson, but we do want to take a look at them. It's part of what makes robotics, where we talk about respect and responsibility for all the kids, and so the core values become a big part of that. Lastly, I just want to go over a few things that sometimes don't come up, and it's important for you to know as coaches. Number one, you should never be spending any of your own money on any supplies. If there's anything you need, please ask me. I have a credit card for the program, so I'm not spending my own money either. The program has a fairly healthy budget, so if there's something that you need, please let me know. This includes papers, pencils, markers. This includes specialty Legos. This includes anything that your team might want. As we get closer to our challenge date, if there's things that you want for costumes, if there's things that you want to support your team as they're trying to present their challenge solution, we can talk about that too and make sure to order it. For the most part, the easiest way to do it is if you can find an order for it online, send me a link for it. I can then purchase it from that online link. and then it comes here whenever it comes here. Try to be ahead of the game on this because sometimes the shipping can be more than just a day or two, and so we have to kind of watch that. Some other things that you need to know: we have tons and tons of Legos. We have like the regular brick Legos, we have Technic Legos, we have tons of Legos. When you're building your robot, any Legos work. It does not have to be Legos just from the Spike kit. It does not have to be Legos. As long as they're Lego brand Legos, we can use them. One of the things people do sometimes build are little apparatus. One of the big challenges we have with our robots is starting them in the exact same spot every time. There are some, people that build apparatus to put in their home area to support where they start their robot from. And I can send you some pictures and some videos of people doing that. And it's kind of cool, but you can build those out of any Legos you want. So that's something important for you to know. And I have tons of Legos. If there's, for whatever reason, a special Lego or a specialty Lego that we need, let me know. We can try to order it and get those here as well. In every room, and we're in like 4 different rooms within the school, but in every room there's going to be a box that has your basic supplies: markers, crayons, glue, pencils, paper, those kinds of things. Those are going to be shared between all of the different teams. I'm not going to have a box for every single team. So please make sure that when you're done, you put things back respectfully and responsibly, back where they're supposed to go. And if there's ever anything missing, like if it's run out of paper, if the pencils are needing sharpening, whatever it is, just let me know and we can make sure to take care of those things. But every room will have those basic supplies. And then as we get closer to challenge time, we'll make sure all the teams have their poster boards and materials that they need for when they're trying to present their project. Hey coaches, this can be an awesome tool for you. Instead of using regular whiteboard markers, which we know don't erase the same as when we were a kid, we can use an electronic whiteboard. You can find this remote in most of our classrooms, or sometimes there's an on-off switch that's over by the main computer. You just turn it on. It's going to come up by default to the computer screen, but all you do is take one of these markers. These are electronic markers. Find the triangle on the side, switch it to whiteboard. Once you switch it to whiteboard, it works just like a whiteboard, except you use the electronic markers. At the end of your practice, you can just take a picture of whatever your team creates and draws, and that way you'll have it for the next time. So once you have a whiteboard marker, you can just draw on it. You can erase it by using the tools over on this side, and that way you don't mess up the whiteboard and you don't have a whole bunch of stuff to erase later. So just a couple more things to cover. If you are not hosting in the STEM lab, if your practice is one of the other rooms in the building, if you're in room 103, the lighthouse room, that one has its own table, you're good to go. But if you are in room 109 or 301, you're kind of way down the hallway by the third grade area, and there's no place to store a table down there. So you're gonna have to come back to the STEM lab to come get a table. So a couple things to be aware of. First of all, my doorstops are all, I have holders for the doorstops by all my doors. So if you do take the doorstop out, and this includes the closets, if you close the closet doors and you take the doorstops out, please make sure to take the doorstop and slide it in the doorstop holder so that I can find them in the morning. If you're trying to get the table out the door, you've got to take the centerpiece out. This is pretty heavy, so you're going to want to use 2 hands when you're doing it. You don't want to let the kids do something like this. It's a little heavier than it looks. Way up at the top, there's a key. You just turn the key. It slides out. Once it slides out, you lift it up, and then you can lean it up against the door. And that's just kind of where we keep it. The key is always in it. It doesn't come out. It's basically just a switch now. And then when you're done, you put the bottom in first, and then you've got to turn the key to slide it back into its spot. So I've lined the bottom up. I'm sliding it back in. When I get to that part, I just turn the key to slide it the rest of the way in, and that puts it back into its spot. When you're rolling the tables down the hallway, the kids can roll those tables down. Just remind them to walk. Be careful. Probably more than one kid pushing at a time, and make sure the brakes are off on those tables so that we don't flat side the wheels. Otherwise, they're going to be like vroom, vroom, all the way down the hallway, and it's not going to go well. Lastly, I'm going to tell you I'm going to make one more video, and this video, the next video, is going to be for the kids. I want you to show it to the kids at one of your very first practices. It's going to talk about what their expectations are as a robotics team member, their expectations towards each other, their expectations towards the equipment, their expectations towards the classroom and school, their expectations towards you as the coach. So that's going to be something that I'm going to make and put that out there, and hopefully that will help support you as coaches as you're trying to work with these kids. You can say, "Hey, remember, Mr. English said this is what we're expecting from you." So hopefully that will help you guys out as coaches. So thank you again for doing this and for helping our kids out. You're going to do an awesome job. Again, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. If you're having questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. That's what I'm here for. I know this video has gotten a little bit long, and I promise as I make future videos, they won't be nearly this long. But I had a lot of information I wanted to give you. I want to make sure you guys get started on the right foot. There's been a lot of questions about how to get the team started, and I just wanted to give my little expertise, my little 2 cents on how to get it started. You don't have to do it my way. You don't have to do exactly what I ask, but just kind of keep your eyes on the prize. That goal of trying to get your team from here to being ready to have their challenge ready in November. So good luck, and I hope we have a great season. Thank you again.